You and I wanted to do this episode in response to some recent events. Obviously, with everything you've had going on, we had to push this out just a little bit. I've gotten to talk to a few people related to this story and get some opinions, which has been nice. But it was sometime in April when I opened up my phone. You and I are good friends with Dave Feldman. Familiar with the study that's ongoing called the KETO-CTA study. Results had already come out on that and had been a little bit disparate or a little bit different than what most of us were really expecting, especially the quantities of certain things. And there was a lot of confusion. Obviously, with a scientific paper, the authors can't really like come out publicly too much and comment on things. There's a whole different system that they need to go through. And a lot of the authors at that time had been mostly silent about what was going on. And I see that an interview had come out and you were the person doing the interview. And I'm like, that's cool. I didn't even know he did interviews. And oh my goodness, dude, you interviewing Dave Feldman, you are a fantastic interviewer. The second that thing was done, I had you on the phone. I think I woke you up. Sorry about that. I forgot you're in Pacific time and maybe sleep in a little bit more than I do an hour earlier here in Salt Lake. But I called you and said, dude, what's up, Barbara Walters? Like, that was an amazing interview. You did such a good job. You pressed him on certain things. You asked really honest questions. I thought the interview was absolutely amazing. So before we get into kind of the content of what we're going to get into today, tell us just about that experience, what it was like to be reached out to by Dave. What did he say? Did he want you to be as honest as possible, ask whatever, ask in a certain way? Yeah, what was that process like?
Well, it was really interesting when Dave reached out to me about it. So Dave and I know each other mainly through the LMHR Facebook group. And I had spoken at last year's Citizen Scientist conference that he'd hosted. And I had a quick 15-minute, slot. And so I guess some people were exposed to me from there. And Dave sees me on the group all the time posting about stuff. Because he's been so busy, he's more been lurking on the group and not posting as much. But once the KETO-CTA study came out, and he was just getting hammered left and right on social media, there was a bit of commiserating happening. And he had reached out. I think I had made a comment on some post on X, and Dave reached out to me. He was like, I can't, he's so stressed about it because he can't say what he wants to because he, is part of the funding of the study. The issue about this study compared to any other scientific study is that it was being watched by people on social media and expected and results, coming out soon. And there was, conferences about it and meetings about it and posts about it happening. Does that happen with any other scientific study?
Movies about it, documentaries done
exactly.
About it?
Like, yes. So there's never been really anything that I can think of, any sort of scientific study that was this anticipated coming out. And so anybody who, on both sides, anybody who wanted to say it was, the most horrible thing, look at all these keto people, their plaque rates are skyrocketing. And everybody on the other side, well, this doesn't really matter because, no one's having symptoms and they're all fine. Everybody was kind of ready to go into their camps right off the bat. And I think I hit my microphone. So yeah, everybody was like ready to retreat into the camps well before it even came out. So when, there were a lot of questions from the keto community and the LMHR page. We're like, hey, where's the data? Why don't we see numbers? So I see this graph that I can kind of, if I zoom in, I can see some numbers if I kind of figure out where it is in the graph. But we're all data nerds. We like to see numbers. We like to see tables. We want to see the individual, we want to see individual data for every single participant. Hell, a lot of us actually know the participants because tons of people in the LMHR group or tons of participants are from the LMHR Facebook group. So when we see the paper that they put out and it just didn't have anything on it for us to grasp onto, we're like, what is this? What the heck? Dave, dude, what's up? And so, I was, wondering that as well. And I communicated that to Dave. And then he came up with the idea of like, hey, can you interview me? And I don't want you to tell me the questions, but I do want you to be hard on me. And so I was like, okay, I'll figure something out and we'll do it. And I've never done an interview before, so
That
that was my
stuns me. You told me that over the phone. That was stunning. You are a pro.
thanks, man. That was my first experience doing that. So that was it was definitely pretty interesting, pretty cool. And I'm glad, I'm really glad Dave gave me the opportunity to do that. He really wanted it from somebody who, was within the LMHR community, but didn't have like a big name or wasn't out there that, that many people wouldn't be familiar with. I think that way it made it not seem quite so, I don't know, heavily biased in one direction or another. And I think it came off that way because I got from both sides. I got, well, Darius is way too hard on him. Why is he pushing back so much? And other people were like, he was way too soft on him. He's just being buddies. I'm like, well, I think I struck the right tone then if I got people on both sides saying that.
I thought you did a tremendous job. I think it was wise of Dave to choose somebody from the community to do the interviewing, because that's where the tough part of all of this is. Like a study that doesn't have numbers, that's a mistake. That's bad. But you can go back and you can sort that out. Studies all the time, like you said, like how many studies get this much attention? You brought up in the interview, like you saw a huge glaring error in the way something was phrased in a different study. And it's like, well, good thing only 15 people are ever going to see this ever, because it's so niche and it's so scientific that not many eyeballs are going to find it. It's only a few people and they can correct this over time. The thing that makes this so unique, and Gil Carvalho was somebody I was able to interview as well, who I thought he did an amazing job in his video talking about some of the issues, interviewing Dr. Budoff. I thought he came across very fair, but also really hard on what had gone on. But the way he was saying it to me in our episode was like, this is a life and death decision. And I see you that has to make a decision about this. I see my friend Robin who has to make a decision about this. For Robin, the difference is like, I might be building up plaque in my arteries, but I'm not bipolar. How do you make that decision? Like, that's a really hard decision. And when on the one hand, especially watching the movie, we're hearing everything is going the right direction. Everything looks really good. So much to be positive about. And then you see this study. And again, not only is it that a mistake was made, but there might be conflicting information that's really unexpected. I wanted to see that from your point of view. Somebody's been in the community who represents all the people on the Facebook page and people that have to make this decision every day, which is like such a hard decision to make. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I wanted to point out real quick, the thing that I had pointed out in a study that was misworded actually wasn't misworded. I was wrong about that. And I wish David actually corrected me at that moment, but so I wouldn't look like a total doofus. But regardless of that, again, yeah, these studies kind of go out and 15 people in the scientific community read it, and it's not being scrutinized from before it even comes out, like this one has been.
Yeah.
So from the perspective of the community, I can't speak for everybody, of course, but just from what I've seen on the Facebook page, a lot of people were really frustrated with like, dude, where's the data? Where's the information that we're looking for? I'm trying to make a decision about this stuff for myself. Keto has helped me lose weight. I feel better. I'm active. I'm performing better than I have in my life, but my LDL is sky high. And even though, I may be a little skeptical about LDL being a problem, it's still there, and there's still plenty of scientific data to suggest that there is an issue with it. Now, is my plaque going up? And if it is going up, do I want to do something about it? Or am I just content with that being my lot in life, right? We have to make compromises. If, my mental health is better, if I don't have pain, if my body composition is good and I'm feeling great, but I am getting plaque increase, what am I going to do about that? Am I going to try to go on a lipid lowering? Am I going to change the diet a little bit? Or am I just going to stick with it and be like, well, you know what? No matter what, we all, we don't make it out of this alive.
Yeah, that's a good point. I love the difficulty of those decisions are very real. And like you said, there is a compromise there. So I wanted this episode to be for lean mass hyper responders, the people that need to make these decisions. So before we dive into kind of the way you see things in the study, what came out, If people want to deep dive into the stuff, you can go and find numbers. You can find interviews where they go into much more of the numbers. So we don't need to get into that there. I'll link some of those in the show notes as well, so people can listen to that if they want data. But just as like a 30,000-foot view, tell us what a lean mass hyperresponder is.
Well, a lean mass hyperresponder is actually a term coined by Dave, I think back in like 2016 or something like that, on his cholesterol code blog that he'd had years ago. And it just identifies people who have a lipid profile that's actually kind of unique, where you have low triglycerides, high HDL, and very high LDL. In general, if your HDL and your triglycerides, like if you're what's called your triglyceride to HDL ratio, if that ratio is low, it means you are very insulin sensitive.